Hey everyone, it's Justine and welcome to a brand new video. I'm very excited to show off my very first holiday cards of the 2019 season, and I'm featuring the new release from Concord 9th, which is now available. Just a quick reminder for those who have signed up for my Technique Resource Binder class, you have 20% off all month long, so don't forget to use your coupon code in the emails. So let's get started on 4 different cards. These are a little bit different. I didn't have a specific technique or a specific idea in mind when I made these. I just kind of turned on the camera and created, and I had a blast. I haven't done that in forever. So let's get started on that. I'm starting off with the Christmas Florals stamp. This is a beautiful collage stamp that is a focal point all in itself. It takes up an entire card front. So I'm going to stamp it on a scrap piece of paper here. I am going to die cut it later so I don't have to worry about making sure it's super straight. I'm using some Memento black ink, which is a COPIC friendly black ink, in order to get a great impression. I am going to COPIC color this later, so I did want something that was alcohol ink friendly. Now to save on some time, I'm going to show you how I colored one of these flowers here, and I'm going to use the combination of R27, R29, and R59. So I'm going in with this petal here, and I'm just kind of going about 3/4 up the flower, ending up with a little bit of a flicking motion at the end. I'm going to continue doing this for each petal. Once I had finished that, I grabbed my darkest color, the R59, and had made some very fine flicks that didn't go up quite to the edge of the red that we had put down originally. Now, flicking is a technique in which you push your marker onto the paper and then flick upwards, and it gets a really, really fine line at the end. This is something I find that you need to practice, and I still don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm definitely getting a lot better as time goes on. So I'm going to continue through each of the petals doing this. When all of that was completed, I then grabbed the middle color, the R29, and I had done the exact same thing. This time I extended my line above the darkest color of red. So I'm going over top of that dark color and continuing to blend that into the lightest color that we had put down originally. Now, when I finished doing that, I went in with my lightest color, the color we just started off with, the R27, and I extended it through the rest of the petal. Now, if you're interested in taking some coloring classes, I definitely recommend those from Kit and Clowder. This is where I have learned to color. I started taking their monthly classes in pencils and alcohol markers, and slowly but surely I started applying this to my card making. I definitely know there's lots of room for improvement, but I definitely know that I've made significant improvements since I've started. Now, once I had finished adding color to the rest of the flower, I went back in and repeated this technique. I went in with the darkest color and flicked towards the top. I then extended the medium color, the R29, a little bit further, and then finished again off with the R27. When I was all finished, it looked something like this. I think it turned out just beautifully. I went ahead and I finished coloring the other 3 poinsettia flowers, and then I decided to go in with a white gel pen and add a little bit of white to the berries in the center, as well as a little bit of a white line on the petals. There wasn't any rhyme or reason for the white lines I added in the petals as to which side I had done it on. I just kind of did it a bit randomly. As for the leaves, I had followed the exact same technique that I did with the flowers. So now that that image is all finished, I hope you didn't mind my little bit of a coloring tutorial here. I don't do them too often, so I think it's okay. I went and attached the die to the cardstock, and I'm going to run it through my Gemini Junior die cutting machine. This coordinating die also includes the Christmas letters so that you can cut them out if you'd like. I decided to cut these out using some gold glitter cardstock from Tonic Studios, and I cut these out at the same time so I saved some time. I'm now going to go ahead and put some glue over top of the black letters, and I'm going to add some of the gold glitter cardstock letters over top. Now, the die is really nice in the sense that I could have actually just placed the die right on top and cut these out, the black letters themselves. I could have placed some gold cardstock behind, but I wanted to have the letters to go over top of the images because I wanted them to not have to compete so much with the floral coloring. I found these pretty easy to line up. But just in case they weren't lining up properly, I decided to go in using a T-ruler when it was all finished and just straighten them out a little bit. This is what I love about using a liquid glue, is that there's a little bit of time to shift your images around before they become permanent. Concord 9th is also releasing 2 foil packs of cardstock, so I decided to use some of the gold foil to make this my card panel. This I cut to 4 by 5¼ inches, and I pasted my image that I had created on top. To finalize the card, I pasted it onto a white card base, and I also added a couple gold sequins. I think the white card base really brought out the shadow of white around the colored image, and I think it looks really great when it's all finished. So let's move on to the second card. I once again grabbed my Misty stamping tool, and I'm using one of the new background stamps from Concord 9th. This stamp is called Woven Stripes. It's a very subtle background. It puts some really fine lines, and I like how the stripes are spaced apart. It means that you could stamp this a second time with stripes in between and have 2 different colors, or you can leave it as is like I'm going to. I stamped this using Twilight ink from Catherine Pooler, which is a nice light gray color. Now I'm going to be using the die cut called Mistletoe, and the stamp set is called Mistletoe Messages. It's a little coordinating small sentiment stamp that coordinates with that frame die I'm just separating right now. I'm going ahead and lining up the mistletoe using the green foil cardstock, the berries on red foil cardstock, and the bow on the gold foil cardstock, all that's new from Concord 9th. I absolutely love these. They remind me of my Tonic Studios mirror cardstock, except for these shades are a little bit different, which is quite nice. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut all 3 of these images off screen. I'm now going to go ahead and layer these on top of my card. I'm going to use some Tombow Mono liquid adhesive, and I'm going to adhere these onto my card panel. I'm now adding the bow, and then I'm going to add each one of the berries on top of the mistletoe. I love these because these can all function as separate dies, especially that bow die. That could really be used for anything. These berries are just simply small circles. That can be used for any occasion. And maybe the holly is a little bit specific, but I think these dies are really great because you could use them in your regular crafting as well, not just during the holiday season. I also went ahead and die cut that really cute frame, and I stamped from the Mistletoe Messages stamp set, Holiday, Bliss, and a Mistletoe Kiss, and I stamped that in the Twilight ink as well. I then went ahead and added some Tombow Mono liquid adhesive, and I'm going to go ahead and add some gold sequins onto my card in a random fashion. Using my Crystal Katana pickup tool, I'm now going ahead and picking up the sequins and adding them onto my cardstock. This is a relatively new tool and a bit of an investment in my stash, and I'm still testing it to see how much I like it. At first, I wasn't super impressed, but as I started using it a little bit more often, I noticed that the wax bit kind of broke down a little bit, and it's picking up the sequins really nicely and releasing them into the glue without much effort. So I actually really love this tool now that I've been using it for a while, but I want to continue using it a bit more before I can say it's something I definitely recommend. Now I may have went a little bit overboard on the sequins, but I think it looks really great. I love all the shine that this card gives off between the foil cardstock and the sequins themselves. Alright, now we're moving on to the third card. This features a Turnabout stamp, which as you guys know, I absolutely love. So just a quick note on how to set this up because it's a little bit different than your regular Turnabout stamp. This one comes with 2 turnabouts, and they can work individually or they can work all together. So it comes with 2 of these transparency sheets, one 6x8 stamp with 2 turnabouts on it. So let me show you how it goes. So you're going to grab one of the transparencies. It doesn't really matter which one you start off with. I'm going to start off with the holly. It also has a this side up right on the transparency sheet so you know exactly where you need to place it. You're now going to try and place as accurately as possible the stamp down onto the black printed areas. You want the stamp side to go down onto the transparency sheet, not the smooth side. Once you have it all lined up, you're going to grab a Concord 9th Turnabout Stamp Jig, or you can make your own by making a 6x6 piece of cardstock with an X from corner to corner. I'm now going to line up the X as well as the X on the transparency sheet and the X on the jig together. Once I've done that, I can now pick up my stamp as I normally would using my MISTI, and I'm going to go ahead and peel off that transparency sheet. It's now done, and I can use this anytime I need to line up that stamp again. I'm going to grab my card panel now. This measures 4 by 5 1/4. It's probably easiest if you're new to do 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 because they have perforated lines in the jig itself, so you can line it up perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and use some removable adhesive and attach this onto my jig. I'm now ready to start stamping, and I've chosen 4 colors: spruce, eucalyptus, sage, and green tea from Catherine Pooler Designs. I'm going to begin by inking up my stamp and stamping it normally. You'll notice in the top of your jig you have number 1 printed right on the jig. This means this is your first stamp. I'm now going to rotate it 90 degrees, and I am going to then ink up my stamp again. It now says number 2 in the top right hand corner, and I'm going to stamp that down this time. You can also use the same type of green if you want. You can use 2 different kinds of green. It's completely up to you how you want to do it. And I like the fact that I'm using Catherine Pooler Designs and I'm using 4 different types of green, so I'm not even going to bother washing my stamp in between. But if you're using really different colors, definitely do that so you don't contaminate your ink pads or get a muddy color. I've now turned it once again 90 degrees, and I'm going to stamp it for the 3rd time using the 3rd color. And lastly, I'm going to stamp it with the 4th color once again. It's going to create this absolutely stunning floral background, or it's not so much floral, I guess, it's more a leafy background or a holly background. And I now have a complete background if I want to use it this way, but I did want to add some berries. So I'm going to show you how to do that now and how this turnabout can act in 2 different ways. Now you're not going to want to remove your paper from your jig. That's probably the easiest way to get everything to line up. Once again, I am grabbing my stamp, this time the berries, and I'm lining it up on the transparency sheet. Once I've done that, it's now time to line it up with the X on the jig again. That was a little bit difficult to see because my card panel was in the way. So what I decided to do was flip my jig over and then line it up from there. That made things a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead, close the door of my MISTI once again, and remove that transparency sheet from there, and now I can go ahead and get on with the stamping. And because I've done this before, I'm going to go fairly quickly through this part so that you're not bored to tears. Just wanted to introduce the colors of ink that I'm using: Rouge and Peppermint Scrub from Catherine Pooler Designs. I'm going to alternate between them, so I'm going to stamp Rouge first, then Peppermint Scrub, then Rouge, then Peppermint Scrub, and I'm once again rotating the card each time. This is going to place the berries in perfect location. Now remember, each time you're rotating it, and now I'm on the 4th rotation, I had stamped 2 and 3 off screen to save some time, and this is what the final background is going to look like. It's quite busy, and you'll see how I'm going to tone it down a little bit when I put the card together. So I've gone ahead and I have stamped the "Oh Come Let Us Adore Him" stamp set. This is a new stamp set called Silent Night, and it has a manger, some really pretty florals, and some great coordinating dies to go with it that I thought I'd use. I stamped this using some Altenew ink in gold. This is a pigment ink and needs a little bit of time to dry, and I recommend you heat set it. Now, one of these things that the coordinating dies with the Silent Night die, it also comes in a bundle from Concord 9th, is this really large frame that is perfect for this large sentiment. And I thought cutting this in white would be a perfect way to tone down that background that we just created. You can see the stamp set here and how many fun little things are on it. So now we have the frame and I've added it to my background so you can see how it really tones down everything. Now I'm going to add a little bit of fun things to this. So I decided to grab these dies. This is the same die set that frame was in as well. And I'm going to die cut it using some of this gold foil cardstock. I'm also going to create some paper using the eucalyptus as well as the spruce ink by adding a direct paper technique. So I've gone ahead and I've added and stamped my paper. Now I have coordinating cardstock. And I am just adding some areas down so I can die cut those floral pieces as well using the same colors that I stamped in. So before I started rearranging my dies, I decided that the frame was getting a little bit lost. I thought maybe I needed to add some cardstock around it, but then I decided to just grab a black pen and I just went alongside it, and I think this made a huge difference. So now I'm going in and I'm just simply arranging some of the pieces that I had die cut. I now have each of these die cuts in 3 different colors to kind of play with, and I thought I would create a fun little collage of these pieces of holly and branches and things on the final card around the frame at the bottom, and I added the star to the top. So here's a final look at the card panel that I've created, that beautiful shine of the stamp set, and the really fun little collage of things that we created using those die cuts at the bottom. Now moving on to our 4th and final card, I'm now going to stamp some of the stocking stuffers stamps. This is a really fun stamp because you can choose from a variety of things to have sticking out of the stocking. I am going to ink this up once again using COPIC friendly ink and stamp those on some white cardstock. I'm going to show you how to color one of the stripes here to get the look that I got. I'm using the same color combination as before, R27, R29, and R59. I'm going ahead now and I'm using R27, my lightest color, and I'm coloring from the top and the bottom of each stripe. Going in with the darkest color now, I'm flicking from the very edge of the stripe into the center. I'm not going as far as I originally did with the R27. When that is all done, I'm then going in with my medium color, the R29, and I'm going to go ahead and flick a little bit farther into the stripe this time, but still not quite as far as that R27. Lastly, I'm going in with that lightest color once again, and I'm coloring in the center, and I'm kind of going over it a few times to create that blend. Almost makes it look 3D. To finish off the stocking, I'm going in with some C2 ink and I'm just flicking a little bit from each of the sides. Then I'm going in with some C00 and I'm flicking out towards the center so that it fades off into the white of the cardstock. I completely colored the stripes of the candy cane in the exact same fashion, and I colored the leaves the same way that I colored the leaves in the previous card that I showed you. Using the coordinating dies, I cut all of these pieces off and out and set them off to the side. In the meantime, I grabbed the stocking stuffers stamp set that you can see here. It also comes with a plain stocking and some more filling options. I'm going to grab all these really tiny sentiments and kind of place them onto an acrylic block. I also went ahead and grabbed some Twilight ink, that light gray ink, and I'm going to stamp this all over my background and create sort of a DIY paper here. When you start to notice you're running out of space or things like that, you can customize and take off one of the stamps or just stamp one at a time and fill in all the gaps, just ensuring that you're also going off of the cardstock as it makes it look more natural. I went and added some foam tape on the backs of my little stocking stuffers here as well as the stocking itself, and I added them to my card. You'll also notice that when I die cut the stocking and the stocking stuffers, I die cut the top of the stocking as well out of white cardstock. Previously, I'd mentioned the Mistletoe Messages stamp set. This is what went on that mistletoe card as a sentiment. I grabbed these 3 tiny berries from that sentiment and decided to fill in any of the white gaps that were still there. To add a sentiment, I grabbed the Peppermint Scrub ink and the Noel stamp in handwritten writing from that stamp set that I just mentioned, and I stamped it on top of the stocking. I decided it needed a little bit of extra red, not just on the stocking, but on the background itself. So I grabbed some white gloss as well as some red Nouveau drops, and I added some Nouveau drops in some of the blank areas on the background. When I was all finished, it looked like this. I absolutely love the way that the card turned out, especially the coloring. It's been so long since I've colored in card making, and I'm really happy that I did. So I wanted to show off these last 4 cards here that I created once again, and I hope you enjoyed this card video. Remember that signing up with my class, you get 20% off Concord 9th this month. There is a free gift with a $60 purchase, and this is an excellent holiday release. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.